Okay, so before you begin, if you have your constellation sky, you want to make sure that you put the stars on there and then let the stars dry before you do this next step. For this next step, take your iPad and open it up to where you're looking at your reference photo in the Pages document. You want to enlarge it to where the size of the picture is matching the size of your watercolor. So if I would measure the height of this, we're a little under 7, and I'm pretty sure that I made my watercolor size 7 inches. So this one's 7 inches, so this is good. Then lock your screen so it doesn't shift around while you're working on it. You may want to take a screenshot and then use your photo, because I found that whenever I was just working on the Pages document, it kept moving around. There we go. So then put your tracing, oh my goodness gracious, this is annoying. Put your tracing paper on top of your image. And then with that 2B pencil, very carefully trace over it. Make sure that the brightness is all the way up too, so you can see the contour really well. And just be very specific, because whatever you trace is what you're gonna get for this final project. Oh my gosh. I hope you guys are gonna have an easier time doing this than I am. So if you have an object like mine where there's lots and lots of little tiny detail, it may be hard to see through the tracing paper. So I'm going to just map in the main contour that I'm seeing, and then I will add in the detail after I, trace in the main object. Okay, so now that I've traced the contour, I can modify the detail that I'm seeing to be a little bit more specific. I recommend putting like a white piece of paper underneath your tracing. And so now I'm going to go in and just kind of modify the detail a little bit. So whenever I would transfer this onto my final watercolor, I'm not going to be coloring this in solid black. I outlined where these marks end, but I'm going to have to individually draw in each one of these black lines. This is where you want to be as specific as possible. This is not a stage where you're going to rush this. So, I'm going to give you guys 2 days to map in this silhouette object so you can take your time with it and not like ruin a beautiful watercolor sky with a rushed drawing. Now to get this onto here, there's a couple of steps that we have to do first. You actually have to flip your tracing paper over and retrace over your pencil lines with that 2B pencil. And you're gonna see what you kind of actually already traced onto here. But now that we have the graphite on the back of this, you'll put it over top of your watercolor, line it up to where it should go, and then you're going to retrace over your lines, and it's going to transfer the graphite that you just put on the opposite side directly onto your landscape. Now it might be hard to see. I can see it, but it might be hard in the video. So what I recommend doing is after you trace it in, just go back with your, this is a 4H pencil, but use a 2H pencil and just lightly redraw over your lines so you can better see them. So whenever you have to ink it in, you can, clearly see where you have to put all of your marks. I also found that I had to retrace over some areas, so you might have to put graphite on the back of your tracing paper one more time and then line up your drawing and trace it in again just to get some of those marks that might have not shown up so clearly. Okay, so you're just going to be using black to put this in. Remember, whenever you are using black, we only use a little bit of the water, and swirl the brush as it comes off You want to be as specific as you can. So I'm using my smaller rounded brush. And I am painting right along the edge of this trunk here. Now, once I get towards that middle part, that's when I need to be even more specific, because I'm not going to be following this contour that I've traced in because it's too simplified. You know, it doesn't actually match the very individual leaves that I'm seeing in my reference photo. So I'm just painting in the areas that are like the solid black. I'm just using the tip of that brush. Now I'm using the edge of my traced in lines to kind of just mark in where my branches should end. I'm looking at the reference photo to, you know, get the angles correct. I'm noticing that this brush might be a little bit big, so if you're able to be in the classroom, I'm going to switch to this smaller brush. I think I'm going to have a little bit more success. You don't have this in your portfolio, but like I said, if you're able to be in the classroom, you know, you can grab smaller brushes to put in like fine detail like what we're seeing here. So notice I'm painting what I'm seeing, not what I think I see. So, I mean, I went a little too fast. I didn't actually paint exactly everything that I'm seeing. So on this side, I'm going to be a little bit more specific. And of course, you know, my object that I'm drawing is a little bit more complicated than maybe the one that you chose. So if you have a nice simple contour, then you just have to make sure that whenever you're painting in the black, that you keep that contour simple and accurate. So no matter what you have, you just want to make sure that it looks exactly like that reference photo.
And if you don't have access to getting a smaller brush, you can always use your art line pens and draw those smaller details in with the pens after you do like the main black portion of it with the watercolor. So there's other ways that we can use the materials that we have to put in the fine detail instead of just using like little tiny brushes. This final step of painting in your foreground will make or break how well your watercolor landscape turns out. So take your time putting in the detail accurately and making sure that your contour does not look sloppy. When you paint in this foreground, please make sure that your background watercolor sky is completely dry. If it's the tiniest bit wet, then your black will bleed into the sky and you won't get these nice crisp edges that you're going to be graded on. You have 2 days to paint in your foreground. Make sure that the object in your foreground is a solid black, not a washed out gray, that the contours match the contours that we're seeing in the reference photo, and that you are making it as accurate and clean as possible. Good luck.